Good evening, dear friends. I am Mountain Lullabies, and it is truly wonderful to be with you on such a special night. If this is your first time here, feel free to get comfortable. And if you are already familiar with this place, I'm delighted to welcome you back. Together we are creating a space of serenity, a place where stories are not just told, but breathe within the stillness of the night. Tonight I will take you to a magical bookshop, a place that appears small and unassuming from the outside, yet within its walls lies a different world, where dreams and reality merge seamlessly. But before we begin our journey, let's take a moment to relax, to release the weight of the day and prepare for a gentle descent into a dreamlike tale. Take a deep breath in, feeling warmth spreading through every cell of your body, and as you breathe out, let go of all the tension, all the worries, everything that no longer serves you. Breathe in, welcoming tranquility. Breathe out, releasing all burdens. Now paint your breath with color. It can be any shade: soft blue like the evening sea, golden like candlelight, or deep violet like the twilight sky. See that color flowing through you, nourishing your soul with calm and serenity. With each breath, you feel lighter, as if the weight of the day has melted away. The world outside fades into the distance, leaving only this moment, this quiet, peaceful space where nothing else matters. The air around you is gentle and cool, like the first breeze of autumn. Drifting through an open window, you can hear the soft patter of rain tapping against the glass, a rhythmic lullaby whispering of warmth and comfort. Now you are ready outside. The rain continues to fall over the cobblestone streets of a quiet seaside town. It is the kind of night that invites solitude, where the distant waves of the ocean blend into the hush of the storm, and the golden globe street lamps reflects in puddles like fallen stars. Nestled between the narrow alleyways, tucked away from the bustling town square, stands the bookshop of dreams. Its wooden signs sway slightly in the wind, the lettering worn by time, but still legible beneath the soft lamplight. It is not a place that demands attention. To a stranger passing by, it might seem like any other old bookshop, with its warm, lit windows and shelves lined with forgotten tales. But the townspeople know better. This bookshop is different. It is a threshold between worlds, where the written word holds power beyond imagination, where once you step inside, you are no longer just a reader. You become part of the story. Most remarkable of all, you do not choose a book here. The book chooses you tonight. Something is different usually. As visitors step through the creaking wooden door, they are greeted by Madame Stella, the bookshop's enigmatic keeper, with her ever-present shawl draped over her shoulders, and eyes that seem to hold centuries of wisdom. She had a way of handing you exactly the book you needed, whether you knew it or not. But tonight, she is not there. Instead, a single, handwritten note rests on the old wooden counter. Tonight, let the bookshop choose your dream. For a brief moment, a hush settles over the room. The scent of old paper and rain lingers in the air. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the shelves, making the bookshop feel even more alive, as if it were watching, waiting. The townspeople exchange glances, not of fear but of curiosity. Madame Stella has never left the bookshop unattended before, but then again, this place has always been full of mysteries. So without question, they step further inside, drawn by the unspoken promise of something extraordinary. The heavy wooden door swings shut behind them, sealing them within the quiet sanctuary. Outside, the storm rages on, but within these walls there is only warmth, candlelight, and the gentle hum of something unseen, yet deeply felt. One by one, the visitors drift to their usual places. Some settle into deep armchairs near the fireplace, where embers crackle softly. Others climb the spiral staircase to hidden alcoves, nestled between towering shelves, where the scent of parchment and ink lingers, like a whisper from the past. A few choose the hammock, suspended from the beams of the great tree, growing in the center of the bookshop. Its branches stretching toward the glass ceiling above, raindrops tap lightly against the panes, offering a melody to accompany the turning of pages. And then something begins to happen. A soft glow emanates from the bookshelves, like moonlight filtering through mist. It pulses gently, as if the books themselves are breathing, and then they start to shimmer. The books are choosing. Each volume waits for the right hands to reach out, to open them, to step into the world they contain. Some are bound in worn leather, their pages yellowed with age, whispering of stories long forgotten. Others are pristine and new, their spines unbroken, promising tales yet to be discovered. But all of them, every single book in the shop, holds a dream waiting to be lived. And tonight, the dream will begin. A hush fell over the bookshop. Outside, the storm whispered against the windows. But within these walls, there was only the soft glow of books, waiting to be open. The townspeople sat in their favorite spots, some nestled in armchairs, others curled up in hammocks, or perched near the great tree. Their eyes shimmered with quiet anticipation, knowing that tonight, something extraordinary was about to happen. One by one, the books began to call to them. It wasn't in words or sound, but in a feeling, a pull, a warmth, an undeniable certainty, a silent voice that said, "This is yours." Theo hesitated as he watched the books glowing on the shelves. He was new to this town, a traveler with no clear destination, only a deep longing he couldn't quite name. Then he felt it, a gentle, insistent pull, like a tide drawing him toward the shore. His fingers brushed the spine of a book, bound in deep blue leather, embossed with waves that shimmered like moonlight on water. The moment he touched it, a warmth spread through his fingertips, and his pulse quickened. He opened it, and suddenly the bookshop faded away. The scent of old parchment was replaced by the crisp salt of the sea. The wooden floor beneath him dissolved into the deck of a ship, rocking gently with the rhythm of the waves. He looked up, and before him stretched an endless expanse of ocean, silver under a sky filled with stars. Theo could feel the wind tousling his hair, the damp pear clinging to his skin. He looked down at his hands and saw that they were calloused, strong hands that belonged to a sailor, not a wanderer. A voice echoed through the night. "Raise the sails, Captain. The horizon awaits." And just like that, he knew this was not just a story. This was his journey now. Across the room, Clara's eyes widened as she reached for a book wrapped in emerald green fabric. Its cover was smooth and cool under her fingertips, as if it had been waiting for her alone. As she turned the first page, a rush of fresh earth and blooming flowers filled the air. The bookshop melted away, replaced by a vast, hidden garden, its winding paths glowing faintly under the silver light of the storm. Vines curled around ancient archways, and flowers shimmered in the darkness, their petals trembling as if they were breathing. And then a whisper, not from a person, not even from the wind, but from the garden itself. "Welcome, dear child. We have been waiting for you." Clara took a cautious step forward, feeling the grass cool against her bare feet. The scent of lavender and moss filled her lungs, and she felt something stir deep inside her, a sense of belonging, of discovery. She had always loved stories about secret gardens, about lost places waiting to be found, but this was different. This time, she was inside the story. She reached out, and as she did, the flowers turned their faces toward her, as if listening, waiting for her next step. Near the window, Mr. Edmund sat with a book on his lap, its pages old and delicate, as if they had lived 100 lives before. Reaching his hands, he hesitated for a moment before turning the first page, and then he was young again. Gone were his aged hands, the slow movements of time-worn limbs. Instead, he was standing tall, strong, full of restless energy as he had been in his youth. He was on a ship, the scent of the sea filling his lungs, the weight of a well-worn compass in his palm. He recognized this moment. This was his past, a chapter of his own life, long buried under the dust of time. "Are you coming, lad?" A familiar voice called. He turned, and there was his first captain, laughing, motioning for him to follow. A lump rose in his throat. He had long forgotten the sound of that laughter, the feeling of standing at the bow of a ship, dreaming of adventure. But tonight the book had brought it all back. He was not just remembering, he was reliving it. As each reader sank into their book, the bookshop seemed to exhale as if satisfied. The glow of the shelves dimmed slightly, the stories now unfolding in minds and dreams. The rain outside softened to a gentle rhythm, a lullaby to accompany the turning pages. For some, the journey would last mere hours. For others, it would stretch on endlessly in the dreamscape of the book's embrace. But one thing was certain, no one would wake the same as before. Each book had chosen not just a reader, but a dream to weave into their soul. And somewhere in the quiet depths of the bookshop, hidden among the pages of unwritten tales, Madama's Stella smiled in the shadows, because she knew tonight the bookshop of dreams had done exactly what it was meant to do. It had given stories not to be read, but to be lived. The bookshop was silent now. Save for the rhythmic powder of rain against the windows, the books had woven their spells, and their readers had surrendered to the dream worlds within them. But tonight the stories would not simply entertain, they would reveal, because in the bookshop of dreams, every book is more than just a tale. It is a mirror, reflecting something hidden within the reader's soul. And so deep within their slumber, the journeys began. Theo stood at the bow of the ship, his hands gripping the wooden railing. As the waves crashed against the hull, the sea stretched infinitely before him, wild and untamed. The wind carried the scent of salt and freedom. But beneath it, something else stirred. A whisper, an unspoken longing. "Where are we headed, Captain?" One of the sailors called. Theo hesitated. He should have known the answer. He was the captain, after all. But as he stared at the horizon, endless and unknown, a weight settled in his chest. Where was he going? He had spent so long moving, wandering from place to place, searching for something unnamed. And now, even here, within this dream, that restlessness remained. The waves surged, and suddenly the water reflected not the sky, but himself, his own face staring back at him, eyes filled with uncertainty. "The destination is yours to choose." A voice echoed, not from the crew, not from the ocean, but from within him. Theo's breath caught. This wasn't just a voyage. It was a question. Would he continue drifting forever, chasing the horizon? Or would he finally choose a place to anchor his heart? The ship creaked beneath him, waiting for his command. The crew watched, expecting, and for the first time, Theo realized this was not a story about adventure. It was a story about finding home. Clara walked deeper into the glowing garden, her fingers brushing against petals that shimmered like candlelight. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and rain, but beneath it there was something else. A whisper soft as a breath, calling her name. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice barely above a murmur. The garden shifted, vines curled around her ankles, not to trap her, but to guide her. Fireflies flickered, forming a path toward an ancient tree, standing alone in the clearing. Its bark was smooth silver in the moonlight, and at its base a book rested. Untouched by time, she knelt before it, her hands trembling. The cover bore no title, just a reflection of herself, shimmering like water. "Read the garden," whispered. With a deep breath, she opened the book, and there, written in delicate script, was her own story. Every moment of her life, every hope, every fear, every dream she had ever dared to imagine, but never spoken aloud, was written across the pages. Her heart pounded. She had spent so much time reading about magical places, wishing to escape into a world of stories. But now the truth stood before her. She was not just meant to read stories, she was meant to create them. The whispers of the garden grew softer, as if nodding in approval. The book in her hands glowed warmly, fading until it was no longer just a story, but a future waiting to be written. Mr. Edmund stood at the helm of the ship from his youth, his younger self full of fire and purpose. The crew cheered as they navigated through a sea of golden light, the sky stretching infinitely above them. For a moment he felt alive, again, not as an old man remembering, but as a young man, living. Then the ship slowed. The golden horizon began to fracture, pieces of it falling away like dust. And suddenly Mr. Edmund was no longer young. His hands, once strong, were now lined with age. His back, once straight, felt heavy again. The dream was fading. No, he whispered, his fingers tightening round the wheel. Not yet. But the ship was vanishing. The crew was gone, the sky had turned to twilight. And in the silence, a voice spoke, a voice he had not heard in decades. "You cannot sail forever, old friend." He turned in there. Standing at the edge of the fading ship was his former captain, the same man he had sailed with in his youth, the same man who had been gone for years. "But what if I'm not ready to stop?" Mr. Edmund's voice was hoarse raw. The captain smiled, eyes full of understanding. "Then don't stop," he said. "Just choose a different way to keep going." And suddenly, Mr. Edmund understood his life was not ending. It was simply changing. His adventures did not have to be over. Just because the sea was no longer beneath him, there were still stories to tell, still tales to share, still a new journey waiting to begin. As the dream faded, he felt at peace, because now he knew he would not wake up feeling like something was lost. He would wake up ready to begin again. The storm outside began to quiet, the rain softening to a gentle drizzle. Inside the bookshop, the air was still, save for the faint turning of pages, the steady rhythm of dreaming breath. One by one, the books closed themselves, their glow dimming, satisfied that their purpose had been fulfilled. The readers slept soundly, their souls lighter, their hearts quieter, because tonight, the bookshop of dreams had done more than tell stories. It had revealed them, and somewhere hidden among the shelves, Madame Estella watched, smiling, for she knew that when morning came, these dreams would not be forgotten, because in the end, the greatest stories are not the ones we read. They are the ones we live. The first golden rays of dawn slip through the rain-streaked windows of the bookshop of dreams, casting a soft glow over the sleeping readers. The night had passed, the storm had waned, and now a new day was beginning. The books, once shimmering with quiet magic, now lay closed upon the shelves. Their glow had faded, their stories told, yet the air still carried a sense of something changed, something lingering in the space between waking and dreaming. One by one, the dreamer stirred. Theo's eyes fluttered open. For a moment he was still aboard the ship, the scent of the sea fresh in his lungs, the salt of the waves lingering on his skin. But as reality settled, he realized he was no longer on deck. He was in the bookshop, curled up in an old armchair, a book resting closed upon his lap. He sat up slowly, fingers tracing the deep blue leather of the cover. He had traveled across endless waters, searching for a place he had not yet named. But now he knew. The answer had never been on the horizon. It had always been within him. For the first time in years, he did not feel the restless pull to keep moving. Instead, he felt a quiet certainty, a sense of belonging. He no longer needed to chase the horizon. He had found his anchor. With a deep breath, Theo closed the book, a small smile touching his lips. Today he would stay. Clara awoke to the scent of parchment and morning rain. She blinked against the soft light, her hands still resting upon the emerald green book in her lap. She remembered the garden, the book without a title, the pages that had reflected her own unwritten story. For so long she had searched for magic in the pages of other people's words. But last night the book had shown her the truth. She was meant to write her own. The realization settled deep in her chest. Warm and exhilarating, she had always been a reader. But now she would become a storyteller. Clara gently traced her fingertips over the book's cover, knowing that the real story, the one she was destined to tell, was still waiting to be written. and today she would begin. Mr. Edmund opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. For a long moment, his body was back to its age frame, his hands wrinkled and worn, but his heart was light. The sea of his past had not swallowed him. Instead, it had reminded him. That adventure did not end with time. It simply changed shape. He sat up, his old book lying still upon his chest. The journey had felt so real. The taste of the ocean, the voice of his captain, the truth whispered through him, like the wind in the sails. "You cannot sail forever, old friend." A quiet chuckle escaped his lips. "Maybe not, but I can still chart a new course." With a deep breath, he swung his feet to the floor, stretching his tired limbs. Today he would not mourn the past. He would step forward into a new adventure, whatever form it might take. As the readers slowly rose from their dreams, the bookshops seemed to exhale. As if content, the shelves stood quietly, books resting in perfect stillness, waiting for the next soul in need of a story. The storm had passed, and beyond the glass windows, a new day awaited. And yet Madame Estella was still nowhere to be seen. The townspeople exchanged glances, wondering if she had truly been gone all along, or if in some way she had been there the whole time, woven into the magic of the books, guiding them silently through the night. But no one spoke the question aloud. Instead, they simply gathered their things, stepping out into the morning, carrying with them the quiet, sacred truth they had uncovered in their dreams. For in the end, the greatest stories are not just the ones we read. They are the ones that change us. And the bookshop of dreams had done just that. As the last reader stepped through the door, the bookshop fell into stillness once more, waiting for the next dreamer to enter, for the next story to be told, for the next soul to be found.